Pick up your gear and open your chests. Throw on your armor and head out on a quest. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. On the Sword Coast, your allies will help with blades and bows and magic as well. Hey, hey, heroes on their way. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, did you wanna bend? Idle champions, you will say it again. Idle champions. From Waterdeep to Icewind Dale, head out to Chull or Shadowfell, hey, hey. Together we stay. Walk to the monsters, walk to the boss, walk to the right, it's never a loss, hey, hey. Bad guys to slay. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, did you wanna dance? Idle champions, you will say it again. Idle champions.
Hey, that's my cue. I was like, when's the next song come on? Oh. Oh. Welcome to Gaarawarr's Guide, the tutorial show, everyone. Or as my captions call it, Garbage Guy, the tutorial show. Thanks, captions. I needed that today. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Anyway. Today's topic is Greengrass Year 7. We're going to be talking about the active event right now and the two champions that are featured in it. And the two champions are featured in it. The way this show works is the first hour I talk about the topic, and then the second hour we do the Q&A. However, you can ask questions at any time. As it's probably going to say in chat shortly, put question colon, and as it says down there, put question colon in front of your questions, and Gabe will grab them. Gabe's in the production booth. Gabe will grab them and throw them in a little backstage document over here for me to answer in the second half. That way you don't have to, like, try to remember what your question is, like, until we get to the Q&A. Just fire it away in chat when it comes to mind. When it comes to mind. Yeah. So, we're just going to dive right in, cause why not? Because why not? So, most of the time when you're looking at your map and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, you're going to see, like, Grand Tour through, Turn of Fortune's Wheel over here on the left, and you'll see your patrons over here on the right with their new patron, Elminster. Elminster. Yeah. Elminster and I have something in common. Do you know what it is, folks? We both think Volo's a hack. That's what we have in common. So Elminster's in the game now, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Greengrass, although Elminster got brought in because of someone in Greengrass. So when an event arrives, it comes into the top of the banner up here. Click on it and you get your adventure node with a bunch of champions to unlock. Right now, your first two champions that you can unlock, the feature champions, Penelope got reworked. Penelope Half Pint from the Heroes of the Plains, everybody's friend. Got a rework. It's pretty good. We're going to talk about it today. And then Gale of Waterdeep arrived. Gale of Waterdeep arrived. Gale and Elminster are friends. Gale and Elminster are both chosen of Mystra. Hence why we got Elminster arriving right when Gale did. When you get an event, there's going to be a lot more going on, and we'll see a lot more. They still haven't gotten the event UI out here into the map screen yet, but hopefully that'll be soon. So these are the first 2 champions you can unlock. And the way the event will work is you will have just unlock adventures. Like this will say, it won't say free play here. It'll just be an adventure, and you'll see Penelope as a reward. Same with Gale. And you only have to get past area 50 to unlock the champions. It's super easy. Anybody can do it. But literally, this is the one thing anybody truly can do, is get past area 50 in these. Yes, even the Elder Brain. I know those mind flayers are painful. The healing. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But yeah, super easy. Each champion is going to have their own formation layout. So Penelope's here is probably the best one in this event for pushing, or at least one of the best. So you get a single tank front line, and then lots of adjacencies. A nice tight formation to get all those adjacencies that so many champions love, to just maximize your damage and be able to push super far. Gale's isn't bad. I don't find this a challenge for a new player or even a returning player. Usually, like, experienced players are going to be fine with pretty much no matter what. But even a new player can build this formation out, I found. So pretty solid, either of these. But this is going to have the most adjacencies, just for the most bang for your buck if you're trying to push deep and get lots of favor. Once you unlock them, you're going to get three variants for each of them. It's going to start off nowadays in Events 2.0 with Tier 1, and you'll be able to work your way up through Tier 4, maybe? So the way the event tiers work now is they're basically overall account progress measurements. How far have you progressed in the game? How much power have you accumulated just in your account, and in terms of the depth on your bench, right? It isn't just about your favorite champions, because they might not be usable here. Like, how solidly have you built out everything? Tier 1 is completable even by new players. So if you're a brand new player, with some assistance from the community, you can most likely complete all of Tier 1. Just maybe helping you with how the formations are laid out, or some tips. Making sure you get favor, that kind of stuff, right? And then Tier 2 is kind of, you're not fully new game, but you're not fully mid game. You're somewhere in between. It's going to take more than just favor. Like, favor can beat Tier 1, but favor alone can't beat Tier 2. You also got to have some other power. Blues and purple gear isn't necessarily enough. You're going to have like a Modron core or some patron perks or something. You got to have some other kind of power from somewhere, right? And Tier 3 is you're more heavily into the mid game, maybe even dipping your toes in kind of in-game stuff to get through that. So, fully completed Modron cores. You got some legendaries, but maybe not a lot. That's Tier 3. And Tier 4 is, look, you've got supercharged Modron cores. You've got full epics on everyone. You've got hundreds of item levels across everyone. Thousands on the more powerful ones. And lots of legendary effects to get through Tier 4. It's kind of how this works. So they're kind of checks on, like, how much have you progressed. Yeah. So if you can't do it now, it's all good. What you're doing is you're finding out where your weaknesses are. Take note. These are the things that you're going to want to start working on improving, because every event, it's going to be checking you. It's going to be checking you from now on. So yeah. But again, anybody can get through tier 1. Again, you might need some tips from people like me. I've got a guide out there for that. There's a Gaarawarr's Guide to Greengrass. Year 7 is up on the subreddit. There's guides to these champions, and the guides to those champions are linked in the event guide. And you'll have, formations, like starter formations. And yeah, tier 1, if you pay attention to the tips we give you, tier 1 can be doable by everyone. All right. Now, as you go along, this is what it's going to look like. There's going to be more champions you can unlock. We're going to talk about that once we hop into an adventure. I'll show you the UI in there. But everything's going to function the same out here. You're going to have an adventure champion unlock, and you're going to have each of the variants. Nowadays, it is, if you'll note, there's, in the old days, back in our day, so I can say our day, because a lot of us were there. You had to use these bouquets to start stuff. Not anymore. Bouquets are purely for purchasing chest packs out of the shop. Nowadays, you can just hop in and do the variants immediately, but you do want them showing as difficulty easy, right? So as a new player, your target goal should be to make all of them show as easy, as green like this. Is 5 EO8 favor. Yes, we use scientific notation in this house. Press Y to get if you're on a PC, press Y to get the game to switch over to scientific notation. That's these decimalized numbers with an E and a number afterwards, and we're going for EO8. 5 EO8. So it's just so much easier for me for everybody to talk in terms of scientific notation numbers than trying to remember what all those fake letters are that they throw after numbers. I know there's lists of those out there, but at a certain point, why memorize that when we can just know EO8 is higher than EO7, is higher than EO5, but is lower than E70, right? All right, so, but shooting for 5 EO8 favor, again, that's kind of just, favor is the only thing that affects these difficulty ratings. I think that shocks some people at times, but that's literally it. It doesn't take into account these restrictions that make variants harder. It's just a measuring stick. So the more favor you get, the better the difficulty rating is. And it really and difficulty ratings, like these difficulty ratings, these were not easy. They weren't. Because the difficulty rating really only matters when you're dealing with tier 1. And they don't really matter, and I know this breaks people's minds, but they don't really matter out here either. It's their measuring sticks. I kind of tend to state that this way. It's like if you go to an amusement park, and there's a sign that says you must be this tall to ride this ride. It's a safety indicator. It doesn't mean that if you're taller than that you're going to enjoy the ride. And it doesn't mean that if you're shorter than that, you wouldn't enjoy the ride. It just means you should probably be at least this tall before getting on this ride. That's it. All right, so just remember, it's just kind of a check on your favor. If you have that favor, it's one step. Then you need to read restrictions. Then you need to read restrictions. So let's talk about restrictions. Let's look at Penelope's variants here. Half-empty crypts is the first one. Now, ignore the completion area. The tier 1 completion is going to be 75. The higher you go up the tiers, the higher the area completion goal. So, but the restriction says grave robbers spawn in each area. While any grave robber remains alive, undead creatures move faster and deal more damage. I don't really consider this a difficult restriction. Again, as long as my comments on these are based off everything showing difficulty easy, because as long as you have the favor to level up your champions, you should be killing them quickly, and it shouldn't matter that the grave robber should die real fast, and the undead creatures aren't getting their bonus, right? It's kind of a non-restriction in my mind. Half full outlook. Awakened cleaning supplies spawn with each wave. These magical cleaning supplies deal more damage and have hit-based health. Penelope can one-shot the cleaning supplies and thus starts in the formation to help out, and she can't be removed. But that means she can be moved around, so we don't see any indicator of where she goes because you can put her wherever you want. But basically, you're dealing with a lot of hit-based enemies. So having your DPS, if you're a newer player, having your DPS be someone like Ashara helps because Ashara is a multi-hit champion. So basically, she throws out multiple blasts, and they can hit different things and remove lots of the hit-based health, which is hit-based is this form of segmented health. You just have to do at least one damage to it to remove a chunk, but you have to hit it multiple times. Penelope just hits them once, but everybody else has to hit them multiple times. Okay, again, kind of a non-restriction. You've got the tools in your toolbox to get past something like this, even as a brand new player. Half Pint Friends, Penelope starts in the formation and cannot be moved or removed. Now, when they say they cannot be moved, it's this C that tells you where they're going. Penelope's going to be right in the middle of the formation, surrounded by her friends. So that's what the C, the champion C, is. One day they'll make that like gold or something, so it stands out. Penelope attacks a bit faster because she's very excited to make new friends. Okay. I mean, she has a debuff. We'll talk about it. She has a non-hit debuff that's going to apply, so she'll get to spread that around a bit. Only good champions can be used. Now we get to an actual restriction. This is the first actual restriction out of these three variants. And yeah, that can limit who you're using. Like a new player, well, there goes Jarlaxle, right? Like, you're going to lose people. So, nowadays it's, you can just hop in and try it. You're not losing anything to try it except for time. Don't go throwing down potions if you're not sure. That this is something you can fill out. Again, 5 EO8 favor or better. Usually when there's restrictions like this, if you can't fill out a whole formation, I usually say try to get more favor. And I don't mean just a little bit. Like, if you're missing a champion, you need at least like an order of magnitude of favor to make up for it. At least. And that means EO1. So, and that's per champion. Right? Because a champion brings a lot of power with them. And if you don't have that power from the champion, you need to get it from your gold, right? And favor is gold find. Favor equals gold find. All right, so overall, not horrible. Obviously, I rocked these out through tier 4, so they didn't seem that bad for me. Some of the tier 4 stuff is rough even for me. So, but Penelope's were pretty easy on the new player account I run over on my channel that I've been playing for. I think we're up to 27 days now. I think today is day 27. Even on the new player account, rock right through them. So, pretty straightforward stuff, even for new players. Let's talk about Gale's stuff. So Gale starts in the formation and can't be moved. He's all the way in the back here, hanging out by himself. So only Gale and champions buffed by Gale's Archmage's Insight can deal damage. We'll talk about this buff, but it basically buffs a couple columns in front with some adjustments based off specializations. So basically, this just means you need to make sure that you're putting your DPS somewhere where Gale is buffing. And there's an option in spec choices to take care of this for you. We'll talk about it when we get there. Again, kind of a non-restriction because they're just teaching you how to make sure you're getting your champions buffed by Gale. That's it. Pawn to Cleric 4. So again, Gale's here, but this time he can be moved around. That's why you don't see the fixed C anywhere. You may only use champions with an intelligence of 13 or higher, Heroes of Baldur's Gate affiliation members, and or Absolute Adversaries affiliation members. So there is a restriction here, but it's not super strict. There's a lot of Heroes of Baldur's Gate in the game. There's a lot of 13 or higher champions, and lately we've got all the Absolute Adversaries. So depending on how long you played and what your bench looks like, this one shouldn't be too hard. But you still might run into a restriction if you're a brand new player. Still might be rough. Again, as long as you're getting that 5 EO8 minimum, you should cruise right through this. All right. And the final one, Elminster's Errands. Now we see a red X down here. This means we have an NPC escort or some kind of inanimate object here. Gale's in the formation, can be moved around. Elminster joins the formation, so Elminster's hanging out with us. That's the red X. He distracts adjacent champions with his stories, increasing their normal attack cooldown by 3 seconds. So this means you don't want to put your primary DPS here, 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 or here. Good news is you've still got a couple places up here and a couple places back here. New players, you would just put their primary DPS up here. You know, really not that bad. You are missing an entire champion, right? This slot is going to be gone. So, you know, you can try it at 5e08, but you might need a little more. Just kind of really depends. But otherwise, Elminster being here isn't like this little attack cooldown thing isn't horrible if it's on your supports. It's just you don't want it on your primary DPS. Now here's another restriction though, and this is the harder one. You may only use the base 12 core champions. I don't know why they put base in there. That's pointless. It's just the core 12 champion, or you just the core champions. That's the first 12 champions. They put a lot of terms in here, and it's kind of confusing. So you can only use the core champions and/or champions that have been released in the last 3 years. The champions that are released in the last 3 years is Elminster's patron restriction. So this is kind of an introduction, a little mini intro to what people are going to have to deal with Elminster. But because you get your core 12 champions, yeah, you're fine. Again, on tier 1, you're going to be fine. So that's not really a restriction. For new players, it's going to be harder for the rest of us as we try to go up tiers. And, all right, let's hop into an Endless War Gale, so we can see the rest of the UI. Oops, I have my. Oh wow, I have. There we go. I want to turn this off. I'm like, I have my Modron core in. It's gonna do stuff. Let's turn that off. All right. Gale is over here in slot 1. Gale's in slot 1. There we go. There's Gale. Penelope all the way on the other side of your bench in slot 12. This is Penelope's default Modron skin. It's not. As far as I'm concerned, that's Penelope's default skin. It's the only one I use. But here's what Penelope normally looks like, folks. I will change it just for you. Just for you. All right. So here's Penelope and Gale. Let's talk about the event UI first. So there's a couple different places here we can click on things. And click on this box up here, which signifies Greengrass and tells you how many bouquets you've earned. Remember, bouquets now are just for purchasing chest packs. Once you earn them, you come over here, you pick the champion that you want. You know, do you want Penelope stuff? Do you want Gale stuff? You come over here, and then you just buy a chest pack. Boom. With 7,500. It gets you 2 silver chests and 1 gold chest. And that's it. That's how you get gear in events now. Bouquets drop 1 every 25 seconds, so you're going to get a bunch over time. There's the only other way you can get there's 2 other ways you can get extra bouquets. One, Strongheart will scavenge some now. He scavenges event tokens. He has a cap, so he'll only get a little bit. It gets you enough. Like in a month, he gets you enough for 1 extra chest pack. But then you can open bounty contracts. Bounty contracts have always been the way you get extra tokens. That's how I got all of these. In fact, give me 652,000 worth of. There we go. I got a bunch of Gale chests. I'm good. Now I can gear up my Gale live on stream in a bit. So that's all you're going to be using your chest stuff for, or your bouquets for. So that's up here, and if you come down here, you get a timer. Ends in Greengrass ends in 18 days. That's right. Events last for 21 days now. So they start on the first Wednesday of every month, and they go for 3 weeks. Real easy to remember now. Real easy. So we click on this, it takes us to the event UI. We can see we have a bunch of champion slots over here. And these are the 2 these are the featured champions, a new champion and a rework champion. There's either always going to be one new champion and one reworked, two new, or two reworked. But more often than not, it's going to be one new and one reworked. And it's going to, you're going to have indicators of how many of the tiers you've completed. There's how many rewards you've got. I've gotten all 12 of my Penelope chests. There's also buffs that you get as you complete the tiers. And then there's permanent rewards for tier 3 and tier 4. So if you complete tier 3 for Penelope, you get this feat. It's the only way you can get the feat. It will never be available for gems. You have to complete tier 4. This is a progress gated. These are progress gated rewards. And then this is our first healing pigment in the game. Nolzur's marvelous pigments are in the game. There's, one for DPS, one for support, one for tanking, and now this is the first time we've seen healing. And it's going to double the healing coming off of a champion for every one of these you get. For Gale, a solid set of buffs. Honestly, I want to mention these buffs can be very big. It depends on what they are. Some of them are generic, like damage all champions, and that can be anywhere in the tiers. But some of them are real big, like tier 4. Penelope's tier 4. There's a reason I finished her first. That the friend's specialization for her is a big deal, and doubling that is. It applies to should apply to the pre-stack modifier. It should be pretty big for her. Gale's got some as well. Again, that Ceramorphosis one can be big. Well, basically, it's one of his specializations. We'll talk about it. And then he's got a debuff, and you're buffing that. He has his feat in the tier 4 because the patron chests were originally there. I know there's some people who got upset about this, but patron chests were not worth the tier 4 reward. They're more of a tier 3 reward. And then it's just an immolation feat, which, it's a functionality feat. It's not a power feat. It just means that when he attacks, he's going to do bud-based damage. So 1 second of bud damage every second for 5 seconds. He basically adds a little bud-based dot to things. So it's neat, but it's not required for Gale. Not required for Gale. All right, now down here, you'll see we have an available slot, and then we have some locked slots. So these are your flex slots. So the available one starts out right away, and the cost is free. It does say cost free here. And you can choose anyone from this list of champions. Most of these are past, like 6 of them are past Greengrass champions, and a couple are champions that got moved in because some of the events are going away in Event 2.0. So we have Narak, Catti-brie, Ayla, Spurt, Melf, Orkira, Gosrick, and Entreas. Not gonna lie, folks, this is a pretty stacked deck. It's gonna be kind of difficult to choose who you want, because pretty much everyone here is solid. I think the only one who's maybe not, I'm not saying they're not solid. Gosrick is solid, but not whoa. Everybody else here, though, has a situation where they are very strong. So you kind of almost, even if you pick Gosrick, you're not wrong. On my new player account, I'm picking based off seats, right? Because I'm trying to split the party. And so if you're not split to party 1, you're not split to party 2. I might end up picking Gosrick. Who knows? I'm not. I picked Catti-brie for seat 7. But if you pick Gosrick, it's not bad. But gosh, the rest of these are real strong. So lots of really good choices, and we're going to go over each of the flex champions next week on the tutorial show. So if you haven't chosen by then, or you want to hold off, you can. But that's your free slot. Now the rest are locked. 2 of these unlock based on time. So this one's going to unlock next Wednesday, and this one the Wednesday after that. But these are going to take 3 time gate pieces. So budget accordingly. You're going to need 3 time gate pieces a week to unlock extra champions. And it's basically like a super time gate, because not only is it half price, but you can push, as far as you're able to get to grab chests, and you're going to get some buffs out of it. Now the flex champions don't have any permanent rewards yet. That's just not a thing. They're adding those currently to the featured champions first. Hopefully they start adding them to more and more champions over time. So these two are going to be 3 time gate pieces each. One of these days, I hope they put that cost out here. And then this one down here, it says unlock the supporter slot now by purchasing DLC containing an event boon. So what is an event boon? If we hop over here, there's these random event offers. And you'll see this kind of D20 with like these lines coming off of it. This is an event boon. So you can stack up to 4 tiers of event boons. When you get an event boon, they give you buffs, basically, that last for the current event, and it's basically a stack of potions. It's like permanent potions, and the more, like at level 1, it's small, and then 2, it's higher, and 3, it's higher, and 4, it's even higher, right? But it's a permanent stack of all the potions. All champs damage, health, gold find, fire breath, and speed. So it's interesting. And there's a bunch of different ways you can get this. Like I said, they do these rotating event offers, which is kind of like an event-based wild offer because it's time limited. They're only like $10. But if you grab one of these like big packs, like Penelope's ASMR glitch skin, which is adorable, and it's got Happy the Cappy, they're also gonna have an event boon. They're more money though, right? You can also just, if you were deciding, I want to buy Gale chests. Well, there's no event boon here on the 3 gold chests, but once you get up to the 7 gold chests and beyond, you see up here on the top, there's an event boon. And any of these event boon DLC is also going to come with a bunch of bouquets. So you can buy chests for anybody you want. Doesn't have to be here. You don't get higher, you don't get more event boons. It's just 1 per purchase. But that's how you would unlock this 6th slot. Okay. So everybody's going to have access to 3 guaranteed. You're going to get the 2 featured plus the one flex available, which is how events always were before, is 3 champions. But you can also flex out an additional one with time gate pieces. And it can be, all of these flex slots can be anyone from the past, instead of like it was in earlier events 1.0. It was just the 3 most recent champions. Now this is a much more flexible system for you to get your stuff going with. All right, let's talk about the champions. We're going to cover. Let's talk about the Penelope rework first. Penelope joins us from the Heroes of the Plains streamiverse. There are so many different streams, and they were all great. She's a female halfling druid warlock. Circle of the Moon. Cat at good, healing support and gold find. Now a lot of her kit is the same. Her base attack is the same. Go away. She jumps out and hits the closest enemy with a quarterstaff, dealing damage and knocking it back slightly. It is a tiny little knockback. It's not a big one. It's the way it always was. Have You Met My Friends is her first ability. Whenever she attacks an enemy and doesn't kill it, basically for 30 seconds it gets a debuff. That enemy will take extra damage from all champions. Okay, so she has a debuff that applies on hit. Then we have a brand new ability, and yes, it's solid. Upon entering an area, Penelope summons 4 medium-sized, randomly positioned insect swarms on the enemy's side of the battlefield. Enemies who are in a swarm are slowed by 100% and are affected by the Have You Met My Friends debuff. That's her on-hit debuff. The slow effect can stack multiplicatively if an enemy is inside multiple swarms, because if they place randomly, they can stack on top of each other sometimes. Every second an enemy is in a swarm, its slowing effect is reduced by 1%. When the slow effect reaches 40%, the swarm is dispersed and disappears. Okay, so it's there for a limited time. Here's what they look like. These are the insect swarms. I'm going to go ahead and take off that so we can get people walking into them. See how they slow down quite a bit once they get, well, these guys are slowing down quite a bit because they're getting killed. But it's going to refresh every time you go to a new area. They'll move around. And they're, that whole, they start again 100% slow and slow down uniquely for each one in each area. As you can see, they really slow down. All right. Chewinga Mask. When an enemy enters one of Penelope's insect swarms, Penelope dons her Chewinga Mask. calling an elemental friend to her aid. Her elemental friend's name is Walton, by the way. I wish they'd put some respect on his name in this game. It's Walton sits on her shoulder while her mask is on. All champions adjacent to Penelope gain the following charms based on their tags. Tags are your roles. That's up here. This part. Charms last until the party changes areas. Okay? So there's a lot going on here. When an enemy enters a swarm, she puts her mask on because it's time to do business. And she starts buffing, and that buff's going to last whether that enemy dies or not. It's as long as you're on the area, the buff's going to stick around. So, healing charm. Penelope heals affected champions for a bunch of HP every second. And this is for tank champions. So it doesn't say here who that targets, but the healing charm targets tank champions. And you have to have her adjacent to those tank champions for the heal to come out. Tools for the job is for healing support and gold champions. So she increases the damage of all champions by 400% for each champion affected by this charm. This effect stacks multiplicatively. That's the good way, folks. Multiplicatively the good way. So you want, this is why for Penelope's formation, they put her right in the middle with 6 adjacencies, is because they want you to learn to stack tools for the job, right? So here's what she looks like when her mask is on, right? And there's Walton sitting on her shoulder. And then you have these little indicators on the left and the right. The right-hand side doesn't really mean anything. If that one goes up, doesn't matter. It's basically how many adjacent champions are tanks. But it doesn't change her healing value. It's a flat heal. Now, the red side with the sword, the number of red dots that fill up on the left side is the number of people who qualify. And getting that as high as possible because it stacks multiplicatively. You're going to want that. You're going to want that. So they give you a visual indicator there. Oh, no, I can do... That's the good way. I just have to lean... The mic's all the way over there. Oh, new mic, it is. All right. So this is how kind of the core of her kit works. And one of the thing that changed, for those of you who are wondering, well, what changed about it? Obviously, we got an insect swarm. But her Chewinga mask used to only come down when the formation was under attack. And because she had a knockback, she kind of screwed up her own combo. So this is much better. Once the mask goes down, it's down and it stays down. She's in battle mode and she stays there. You just want enemies to walk into the swarm to trigger it. Okay. All right. All right, so we have first specialization because, but of course Penelope is going to have second specialization. We just refer to this as the friends specialization. So keep your friends close, keep your future friends closer, or everybody gets to be friends. And what you get here is basically a buff, multiplicatively stacking for different qualifications. So keep your friends close is a buff per good champion in the formation. Keep your future friends closer is per evil champion in the formation. Because remember, everybody becomes Penelope's friends. Even evil people, like Tiamat. Yes, that's canon. And then everybody gets to be friends is for each champion in the formation. Now, that's very generic. And you're like, well, why wouldn't you just choose this one all the time? The buff values are different, right? So it's higher for good champions. It's a little lower for evil. And it's a lot lower for just everyone. Now, the thing is, though, because it stacks multiplicatively, you're still going to want to do this math. Because sometimes, like a lot of the times, I'm looking at everybody gets to be friends, and it's going to be 10, because you have 10 champions in your formation. And if these others are at 5 or 6, the 10 still blows them away, because multiplicatively stacking. I know it's a bit annoying to have to try to do this math, especially when we're dealing with percents. Multiplying percents is problematic. You got to do a bit of a conversion real quick, and so I'm going to tell you how to do this conversion. Yeah, math. I hate math. Just tell me the results. Exactly. I wish they would just tell us the buff value down here. Sandy, come on. There's nothing wrong with making your game accessible to people. We already have to make decisions about building a formation. We don't need to break out a calculator and do the math. So the way this works is with a percent. I'm going to make this easy. 100%, when we convert to try to figure out how our stacks are going to work, 100% is a 2x multiplier. And we want to work with multipliers and not percents. It's just going to make your life easier. So 100% is a 2x multiplier because you already have 100%. You have a whole thing. And you add another whole thing. That means you doubled it. With me? You with me? Okay. So 1400% is actually a 15x modifier, right? So I'm at 1400% here. So basically, you just want to take the number out at the end of the thing, like if it's 100% or higher. You basically want to add 100%, but then just take the whole, right, as if it was a whole. Move the decimals over too. Take a whole number. So 1400% becomes 15x, right? 654% becomes 7.5x, right? Then you take those multipliers, whatever one. We have 2 of this, so 2 times it's 7.5 times 7.5, as opposed to 15. Well, 7.5 times itself is going to be a bigger number. This is real straightforward. This is a silly example, but you want to work with those multipliers. You want to work with those multipliers instead of with this. Break out the calculator. Like Windows has a calculator that lets you do orders of magnitude, because that's what we're talking about. So it's 7.5x to the second power. To the second power. There's a little x with a y over it on most calculators nowadays. That's what you want. You want to type in like the number and then hit that xy, and then the next number is going to be the to the power of. There's a specific term for it. I don't care. To the power of. All right. Do that with this and figure out which one's your best one, because they're making you do the math. But you want that. This is multiplicatively stacking ability. It's got an item. It stacks pre-stack. Penelope mops. She's a shrubbery. Of course she mops. Penelope mops. She's got it's a mathematically overpowered ability. Mathematically OP mop. Penelope's got it. This kind of ability is super strong, and it gets stronger the more item levels you put into her. That's what that means. It doesn't mean it's going to be OP the second you get her with no gear. It means when you invest heavily into her, she continues to deliver. All right? Just like friendship. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. Let's keep going here. The next up is story time, and this one's pretty huge. Each time a champion adjacent to Penelope attacks, and remember, you want lots of champions adjacent to her, right? For tools for the job. Each time a champion adjacent to Penelope attacks, add a stack of story time. The party's gold find is increased by 1% for each stack, and it stacks additively. Storytime stacks are capped at 1 EO9. That's a billion. Whenever a boss enemy enters an insect swarm, the number of storytime stacks are increased by 2.5%. That's the way you want to stack it. You want to get to. We're gonna do this. Maybe. You're gonna get, if you want. It's gonna stack on its own automatically as you get further in an adventure. But if you want to max it out, you basically just want to come to a place like a boss level, and then just let the boss run into these things over and over and over again, and then kill the boss. Right? If she hits that, she just got stacks over here of story time. Well, we're not. Oh, I don't have anybody next to her, folks. If you don't have anybody next to Penelope, increasing stacks by 2.5% is still 0. Good job, Gaarawarr. Good job, Gaarawarr. There we go. So she's going to start stacking up, and the big jumps are when she gets somebody, when she gets a boss in those plagues. It's going to do its thing on its own, folks, as you get deeper. Now, the stacks stick around for the adventure, but when you reset the adventure, when you start a new adventure, they go away. This isn't permanent stacking. You can cap this out. It doesn't. It caps out with the 2.5%. It just starts ramping up pretty quickly when you get near your wall. And it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of gold find. There's no item here for it, but it's a ridiculous amount of gold find. There's a feat here. There's a couple feats here for it by 20% and 80%. So you can generate a lot of gold find with Penelope. Now I know she's in Azaka's seat, but look. Spoiler alert: Azaka farming not really required anymore. Nowadays, people do what's called dirty farming. Which basically means you build out you save your pushing formation, like in your formation saves over here on the left, in the bottom left. And then you also save a formation that's just gold find maxers. Straight up, just tons of gold find. Oh, like a stacked Penelope. And you use a fire breath potion, and as you're pushing deep, when you spike, you get a solid bud that's higher than the enemies, and fire breath's just killing everything instantly. You just hot swap over to that gold find formation and just soak up gold. It's just like a sponge. It's called dirty gold farming. So instead of stopping to do Azaka farming, you're kind of getting the similar thing, but you don't necessarily get like crawl stacks, right? But with people now like Penelope with some huge gold find numbers, it's all good. It's all good. Soak it up. Enjoy. And I do this on my new player account too. It does require fire breath potions, but it works. Ultimate attack is erupting earth. Right here, a fountain of churned earth and stone erupt under the nearest enemy, dealing area damage in a large radius and creating difficult terrain that slows enemies in it by 50% and lasts for 30 seconds. Here's what it looks like. Boom. It's all of that chunky earth over on the right-hand side. It's only going to stay on that area, but it'll stay there for 30 seconds and slow people in it. It's pretty solid. Here's your second specialization choices. Now, these are very specific. The friends one is the multiplicatively stacking. It's the superpower one. This is functionality. There's power and there's functionality here. So, Fury of the Fireflies is her power spec. So each time one of Penelope's insect swarms is dispersed, the effect of Chewinga Mast is increased by 200%, stacking multiplicatively, but it resets when you change areas. Okay, so this is her power spec. This is her power pushing spec. Splitting the Hive. Each time one of Penelope's insect swarms is dispersed, another smaller swarm appears randomly, preferring to appear on an enemy if possible. And it damages enemies in it for 15 seconds of bud damage and slows them using the same rules as the original insect plague. These smaller swarms do not spawn additional ones when they disperse. This is like a little swarm-based fire breath potions, but it's 15 seconds of bud. Folks, that's more than your DPS champion is going to be doing. This is a burst of damage, but it's going to be fixed on wherever that swarm is. Okay, but 15 seconds is a lot, because remember, if your base DPS has a 5-second attack speed, right? Like that's their base attack cooldown. This person's going to be doing, or these swarms are going to be doing 3 times their damage, basically. Okay. Dance of the Ladybugs. This one's another functionality thing. So hold on. Splitting Hive. So you are getting a bunch of burst damage, but I find this more useful for either you're dealing with armored bosses, or you have plenty of power and you just want to race through something and instead of popping fire breath potions, you're just going to let these swarms do the damage. Okay, that's kind of its use case scenario. Dance of the Ladybugs. Each time one of Penelope's insect swarms is dispersed, Penelope reduces the cooldown of all adjacent champions' ultimate abilities by 20% of its remaining cooldown. So this is just like if you are using ultimates a lot, if whatever you're pushing the scenario requires the use of ultimates, here you go. This is going to bring it back. And there are scenarios where firing ultimates off more often could be a big deal. And this is going to get you there. Dance of the Ladybugs. Remember, Fury of the Fireflies, really a lot just pure power. It's just going to give you more tools for the job. Actually, it says the effects of Chewing Gum Mask. It might boost healing and tools for the job. Hard to say. And then this is the dots. This is the dots. You want bud based dots? Sure, have bud based dots. And then this is ultimate cooldowns. All right, I'm gonna split the hive just for fun. We're not gonna get anywhere. We're gonna need to, where we're gonna be dispersing any of these. So it doesn't really matter for me. And that's everything in her rework, folks. She's got a lot of feats. She had a lot of feats before. She's got some new ones. She's got a bunch of all champions damage. It's a generic gold, but this isn't as big as these other golds for story time. You got to build these up, but 80% is huge when you're talking about all of those stacks she gets. We've got some Have You Met My Friends all the way up to 80%. We got this one is healing Chewing Gum Mask. This is the buffing Chewing Gum Mask. Oh, there's another gold one. Here's her glitch one. Again, that's only from that pack or from 50,000 gems. We got story. This is another story time. Oh, that's the 40% story time one. But this is the one. This is the big one. Growing friendships. Again, this is her friend spec. And friend spec, again, is multiplicatively stacking with pre-stack multipliers. This. In fact, why do I not own this yet? Because this is new. So I'm going to want... we're going to get rid of this one. Well, this is the debuff. This is the... Yeah, we want this one. And then I want my friend spec. Where'd it go? Right there. Boom. Okay, now my Penelope is Penel OP. All right. There we go. Next up is Gale. Oh, we should... Oh, she's got... Oh, where did they put her? Where did they put her achievement again? They moved it around. Is it in Festival of Fools accidentally? There it is. I don't know why they did this. Slow down a minute. Slow the movement of 1,000 enemies with Penelope's difficult terrain from her Erupting Earth ultimate. So this is just, you got to use her ultimate a lot. Just use Penelope, use her ultimate a lot. Now, could you farm it out? Sure. You could go to a Chumbawamba variant with 100 enemies on the screen. Farm it out in 10 ultimates. But just use Penelope a lot. You'll be fine. Let's talk about Gale. Gale is the male human wizard. If that wasn't obvious. Neutral is his base alignment. That means neutral, or true neutral. So on both axes, he's neutral. He's a support champion, pure support, member of the Absolute Adversaries. He is the last to join. This is now a full affiliation. Full affiliation in the game. Base attack is a firebolt. It deals 1 hit to a random enemy, but he prioritizes enemies he hasn't hit yet. I know, just like this is probably like, what? It's going to make sense here in a second. But this is great. This is actually great. All right. He has a passive ability. That's what these level 0 abilities are. He's an ally of Elminster. Okay. Sorry, just checking. Gale can be used in any Elminster patron, adventure, or variant, even if he would normally not be available due to the variant or patron restrictions. So basically, Gale can do all Elminster stuff. Okay. That's what it means. Archmage's Insight is the base ability. This increases the damage of champions in the 2 columns in front of Gale. So, column 1, column 2. So he'd be buffing Penelope from here. But if we put him all the way back here, he doesn't buff Penelope. Okay? See how that works? You get the little green arrows? Yeah. Alright, so that's his primary buff. So you want to always make sure, well, we're going to change, there's some ways to change this up, but just, you know, at level 50, you got to make sure he's within 2 columns of the person you're buffing. Netherese Orb. The first time Gale damages an enemy, they take 1,000% additional damage from all subsequent attacks. This is what makes this great. So he's always going to, this is a debuff. This is a damage-based debuff. He's going to spread it around the room. Ultimately, give him enough attack speed, he'll put it on everyone. Okay. Let's start talking about changing Gale's functionality. Gale is super flexible. I don't mean that in a physical athletics kind of way. I mean his kit makes him super flexible. So you can choose his School of Magic, Evocation, Abjuration, Enchantment, or Illusion. And this changes how Gale works. So, Evocation. Gale's Firebolt deals damage to all enemies in a small area. This means he's going to AoE apply that debuff from Netherese Orb. Remember, he's not your DPS champion, so giving him an AoE, just what you're getting is AoE application of debuffs. Which, in a situation like where you're just early on like this and you're just hitting things and killing them, doesn't mean anything. But when you're later on in a game and you're going to be stacking, you're going to push deep and you're going to stack up enemies, he can AoE apply it to an entire stack. Okay, we don't want to be on the other brain yet. So, that spec choice, potential AoE application of the debuff. That's what you're getting out of it. Okay. Abjuration. Attacks against champions miss 50% of the time. So this is a survivability feature for your whole party. Not just the tanks, because there are AoE based bosses, and it isn't like the way it works is it's on a per champion basis. So a boss drops an AoE on you, every champion gets a roll to see if it hits them. It can miss half the party and hit the other half. Right? So this is a neat survivability feature. If that's what you need, and sometimes you do. I'm looking at you, Valindra Shadowmantle. Like, miss 50% of the time? Yeah, I'll take it. Enchantment. This increases Archmage's insight number of columns by 1. This would mean that instead of buffing the 2 columns in front, he would be able to go all the way back here. Remember that variant where he's fixed back here? You would want to choose this spec. Because then he would buff all 3 columns, all the way up to Penelope. Super flexible functionality here. So Enchantment is the one you want for that variant, where he's placed in the back and only people who are buffed by him get to do damage. Illusion is the final one. Archmage's Insight now affects his column and the column behind him. Completely changes the way his buff works. His column behind. And, as if that wasn't enough, that was a cool enough thing on its own, in my opinion. Now, and enemies that attempt to choose Gale as a target for an attack, instead, choose to attack another champion, assuming another valid target exists. What does that mean? It means, let's say this row with Penelope was your tank column. And you put Gale and a tank here. The enemies go to walk up to Gale and would just decide, nah, he ain't worth it, and would go to the other enemy. Go to the other tank. We call this an anti-tank or a nega-tank. Turiel in slot 1 has this a feature already. It's interesting that they put Gale in the same slot. But basically, it's a Jedi mind trick. It's, I'm not the tank you're looking for. And the enemies walk to the other target. It doesn't work on AoE stuff, because it's AoE. But basically, he just hand waves you off to somebody else. As long as there is a somebody else. In this kind of situation, where there's only one slot at the front, they would just hit Gale. They can't walk by him. They would just hit Gale. So it's not for single target front line, single champion front lines. It's for multi-champion front lines. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only time you can use it. You can also use it if you just want to change the way Gale buffs. If Gale needs to be up here, and your DPS is either in this column or in this column, then you could choose it as well. Again, super flexible options with Gale's first set of specializations. I love it when they make specializations truly specialize a champion into something, like they change the functionality, and it's not just damage. This is super fun to me. All right. Second specialization. We'll go ahead and talk about this. Ceramorphosis, Mystical Mentor, and Finite Fellowship. So once again, we're talking about a multiplicatively stacking ability and a specialization. So the number of stacks matters, as does the multiplier. Now here with Ceramorphosis and Mystical Mentor, it's both at 100%. So these two, pretty easy to figure out if it's going to be one of these two choices. But then Finite Fellowship is a 7.5%. Much smaller number. Which means this, the number down here has to be huge. You're still probably going to have to do that math. If you got a big number over here and a small number over here, you might still want to do the math. It's going to take a lot of 7.5% multiplied against each other to overcome a decent set of stacks over here, though. Okay. So, Ceramorphosis is, the stacks are the tadpoles. And it's going to increase the damage of the Netherese orb, is what's going on here across the board. And that's the debuff, right? So you're increasing his debuff. So Tadpole Party, Ceramorphosis. Mystical Mentor is Intelligence 13 or higher. And then Finite Fellowship is really built for variance. It's built for variance. Because it increases the effect for each champion you have unlocked, so down here in your bench, like in all of your Swippy Swappies, that is not eligible for the current adventure. So when you start getting into super restricted variants, Gale wants to come and play. Because this number could be through the roof. We have 134 champions in the game. So if you're restricted out to like, I don't know, 30 or fewer, guess who wants to be in your formation? You may have lost a lot of power. You may be like, I'm dealing with some low value people. But if you can bring Gale in, he's going to throw down off of Finite Fellowship. It's going to be a big buff. It's going to be a big buff. Okay. But yeah, you're going to need to do some math. You're going to need to do some math here. I'm just gonna pick this one just for fun. It doesn't really matter at the moment. Because we're not building out a full formation. Okay. An experienced sage. Here we go with the final one, and this really only matters to late game players. I'll say late game players. Gale increases the effect of archmages or archmages, however you want to pronounce that, insight by 10% for each Elminster patron variant you've completed, stacking multiplicatively. That's a good way. He does the item support is post stack, is my understanding. Yeah, there's almost 400 variants in the game. 10% multiplicatively gets big. It gets big. Now, but this is only going to matter when you get to Elminster. Elminster is the late game patron. He is the big daddy. He's it. He needs a lot. You gotta have everything right on your form. He needs all the power, which makes sense. It's Elminster. You want to go work for Elminster? You better show up. You better show up with everything, because Elminster is going to want it all. So this isn't going to stack up for new players. You can kind of ignore this for now. Just know that as you get into the late game, you start doing stuff, Gale's going to get even bigger than he already is, and he's pretty big. Gale's pretty big. All right, Gale is the ultimate. Gale casts Gust of Wind, knocking back all enemies, dealing ultimate damage and slowing them for 15 seconds. Here we go. Boom. That's it. If it hadn't killed everybody instantly, they'd be slowed for 15 seconds. They'd be slowed for 15 seconds. Feat-wise, we get damage of all champions, Archmage's Insight, Netherese Orb, an experienced sage. Check that out. Elminster can get you a feat that makes Gale neutral good. Changes his alignment. That's new. That's new. Right? Then we come down here, and then there's some interesting stuff. So here's a boost to those multiplicatively stacking specializations. These are going to be great. You're going to want those eventually, right? And then we already talked about he's got that immolation thing. Again, that's fun and flavor, and that's the tier 4 reward. Item-wise, I forgot to talk about Penelope's items. I apologize, folks. She has a damage all champions items. Then she gets Have You Met My Friends? Chewing Gum Mask healing, Chewing Gum Mask tools for the job, so healing item and then buffing item. And then, this is the big one. The slot 5 is the one you want gilded with tons of item levels, because that's the multiplicatively stacking with pre-stack modifiers. This is the friend spec. And then it reducer cooldown. Gale, I have no gear on. Let's talk about gearing up your champions, because yes, there is an efficient way to do this. Okay. The efficient way is Electrums first, and with the goal of trying to get at least green or better gear. With enough Electrums, you can get them all the way to blue. Can. After that, and the goal here is, the reason for Electrums first is Electrums basically will magnet on to a champion that has no gear over champions that have gear. So if all of your champions are in blue or better gear, all of those Electrums are going to dump here as they pop. That's just the way they're going to work. And since you already know where your named chests are going, like your Gale chests, you can hold on to those. Use the random ones from the Electrums first to gear up. Then you can start dropping named silvers and then finally named golds. Yeah. This is kind of the order of operations. So if I pop, like if we watch this, you're going to see, hey, look, Gale. Hey, look, Gale. Hey, look, Gale. Now remember, Electrums can technically drop gear for every champion, and I own 134, but all I'm getting is Gale gear because magnet. Because magnet at the beginning. Now once I get all 6 items, it's going to then only magnet on any upgrades. Like, see, we're getting to greens. There we go. There, that was a white that we didn't have. Now I've got all of Gale's gear. Now it's completely random. But if it's an upgrade, it will go to Gale. So it's going to start hunting for places it can go. It's still duping onto Gale, which is interesting. Oh, that's because he had like empty item slots. But now I'm duping onto other champions. But when we get back around to an actual upgrade for Gale, it will go there. There we go. See? So if it threw high enough to give him an upgrade, it's going to magnet onto that. So now I've got Gale in green or better gear. If I were out of Electrums, I'm good. I mean, I'm fine. At that point, I'm good. But I can keep opening Electrums to get full blue. Silvers, named silvers, could also get me to full blue, potentially. It's just harder to get the blues. It takes a lot more chests. But now, once I'm at green or better, now I could also start opening up gold chests. I could do gold named chests, or I could do gold patron chests. Technically, gold patron chests would be first if you're super end game. Electrums into named silvers into gold patron chests, and then into named golds is the priority. But yeah, so now I'm guaranteed if I open up. Where's my Gale chests? There we go. So if I open the Gale chest, I'm gonna get a blue for Gale. Oh, I got an epic. I got an epic and a blue. Streamer luck. But I was guaranteed to get a blue for one of those to upgrade the greens. I just happened to also get an epic. I'll take it. But I'm just going to pop all of these. This should get my Gale to full blue. There we go. We got a bunch more blue gear. If I come back out, he should be at full blue and an epic. Yep, there you go. And now all I'm doing with my chests is I'm popping all these silvers to give him duplicate item levels, because duplicate item levels are power. And then I hunt the golds, or hunt the epics here. Now remember, your epics, I got one on the first, but normally your epic pity timer starts at 4, which means if I were to open 4 gold chests, the first 3 didn't give me an epic, the 4th would be guaranteed. But I got one on my first chest for Gale, so then the pity timer resets to 10. And now you're just chasing the pity timer. Like, how many do I have to open to get another epic? Do I run all the way to the pity timer, or do I beat it, right? And usually, oh dang it, that's the bounty contract. Usually you're going to beat the pity timer, but sometimes you got bad luck and you don't. There it is, I beat it. I was at 6. That was my 6th chest. Okay, I have more than enough here. The worst you could ever do is it could take 54 gold chests to get you to full epic. That's the worst. But on average, over the years I've been playing this, somewhere in the 30s is usually good. Somewhere in the 30s is usually good. There's all my epics. All right. So let's look at Gale's gear. He's got a damage of all champions item. He's got Archmage's Insight. That's his primary buff, so that's great. He's also got his Netherese Orb. That's his debuff. So you can item support his buff and his debuff. Experience Sage is that Elminster action. Then there's his ultimate attack and ultimate cooldown. Okay. Now Gale does not have a mathematically OP ability. All of his stuff is post stack. Unfortunately. But yeah. All right, let's talk about the boss here before we get into the Q&A portion. Because Elder Brain's challenging. So the Elder Brain is let's drop this. The Elder Brain is a hit-based boss. As you can see down here, it says 50-50 HP. That means each chunk here I can click on it once every 5 seconds, and it will remove a chunk because you just have to hit it once. Now, the challenge with the Elder Brain is these Mind Flayers. If they attack your party, the Elder Brain heals. The Elder Brain heals. So Penelope is great for this because she's going to slow them. Now, they have ranged attacks. So, no, it's not really going to... She doesn't help as much as I thought. She's going to help on the melee ones because I think some of them are melee too. But the ranged attackers are going to heal this Elder Brain up. What really comes down to killing the Elder Brain is attack speed and multi-hit stuff. So if we look at Ashara as a core champion for people who... there we go. Core champion for like starting players, if you're trying to figure this out. Ashara is going to hit multiple times if she's got all those magic missiles. That's going to help you out. Also, as odd as it sounds, Jarlaxle, I can't throw him in here. He always attacks from the back, so he's always going to be attacking the Elder Brain. You need a combination of insta-killing these Mind Flayers and hitting the Elder Brain. Because it is hit-based, Hitch, that you get from the newsletter, is also helpful. Pick the more daggers spec. Hitch is going to bounce daggers around, and those daggers will bounce off the Elder Brain, like that. Look at the chunkage we're removing. So, again, you're gonna need some power, obviously, to be able to just one-shot these Mind Flayers. That's not always easy to get, but once you get it, like on your first run, it may take a little while. Sitting at 49, farming, upgrading champions efficiently. Eventually, you're gonna get there. But that's the key. Get those multi-attackers in. Everybody's got Ashara. Everybody can get Hitch. Click the hamburger button. Sign up for the newsletter. Get hitched today in Idle Champions. All right, we're going to take a short musical interlude. We've got like over 24 questions. Thank you, folks. Hopefully I can answer them. The song for this musical interlude, it's Won't You Be My Friend, the red guitar edition for Penelope. And yes, the red guitar matters. You'll see.
Won't you be my friend? One without a fear. I've got a hand to lend. We'll be smiling through the air. They call me a half-pint sprout, but I want you to know, my friends say there is no doubt that I'm a whole hero. My love for adventure, second to none. So if you come along with me, we'll have lots of fun. Won't you be my friend? One without a fear. I've got a hand to lend. We'll be smiling through the air. Remember when things get dark, I can be your light. When you're ready to disembark, be there to fight. I'm going to mold the earth just to give you outside. We'll be snug as a bug. Won't you be my friend? One without a fear. I've got a hand to lend. We'll be smiling through the air. Our friendship is strong and we'll never part. Saving the world with the power of our heart. I'll never say goodbye, 'cause friendships never die. Braving the world with the spirits high. Won't you be my friend? One without a fear. I've got a hand to lend. We'll be smiling through the air. Won't you be my friend? One without a fear. I've got a hand to lend. Walk around the bend.
Oh, that red guitar sounds so good. So good. Okay. Welcome back. I'm gonna try to hit up questions that are on topic first, and it's okay if you ask off topic questions. We'll get to it eventually. We'll get to it eventually. All right, Sam the Spaceman. If you still haven't unlocked most of the champs, which would be your first to unlock with this event after Gale and Penelope? It depends. Truly. Like if you don't own all the champions, start with the one. Look at the ones you don't own. I mean, like if you're talking you don't own any of these, it really depends. Like, have you done split the party 1, 2, 3? Like, if you haven't done 1, 2, or you still haven't done 3, then your goal is to look for champions in seats that are going to get you to split the party. On my new player account, I needed a slot 7. I chose Caddy Bree because the other slot 7 was Gaarawarr. I prefer Caddy Bree as a flexible support or DPS. And then I'm going to need a slot 3, so I'm going to choose Spurt next week. And then I'll be able to split the party. And then I'll make whatever my final decision based off what's going to get me to split the party 2. Right? You need to keep split the party 1, 2, and 3 in mind when you're making decisions in the early game. And you need 1 extra chance. Split the party 1 is 1 extra champion in each slot. Split the party 2 is 2 extra champions in each slot. Split the party 3 is 3 extra champions in each slot. It's pretty straightforward, right? Now, if you own all of them, or if you've completed all 3 split the parties, then you need to look at like what's going to help you progress. Okay, and again, pretty much everyone here is either in the super strong category or just solid. Gaarawarr solid, Melf solid. In a very specific scenario, Melf is super strong, and that's if you put a ton of item levels on him and you're using him to farm kills for kill quests, like stacking up the Dark Urge. He can stream in tons of enemies in very specific scenarios. Outside that, right? So Ontreus has a mathematically OP ability. So Ontreus is a mob. Huge buffer. Also has solid shields. Orkira, queen of debuffs in the game. And she's also a huge healer. So super solid. Spurt is a solid champion normally. But like with Melf, if you add incredible amounts of item levels, he becomes one of the biggest buffers in the game. But it needs an outrageous item level investment. So if you're not to the point where you can easily invest thousands of blacksmithing contracts, then Spurt may not be the best choice, but he couldn't eventually get there. He's solid on his own. Ayla is a great tank, so for survivability reasons, she self-shields off enemies she hits with her stuff, and it reapplies fairly regularly. She's one of my, favorite tanks to use the end game. Also, she applies a debuff. She's a debuffing tank, and debuffs are solid in this game. Again, Caddy Bree is kind of my favorite, one of my two favorite flex DPS champions, Caddy Bree and Birdsong, because they can both be supports and they can both be DPS, and they do both really well, like really well. The nice thing about Caddy Bree is she's a super, when you get gear on her, she has a super high crit chance that can get over 100%, and high crit damage multipliers, and then she can give that to other people. So she's great in crit-based teams. Narak is here. I have Narak and I have a difficult relationship. So Narak is now a pure support champion, pure support, and Narak has a buff and a debuff, and I think a lot of people find Narak that they use it. You don't level him up very high, and he can build up a bunch of stacks to max out his buff, and then people will level him up and then just ignore his debuff, and even then he's got a solid buff. But what a lot of people don't realize is his debuff is huge too. But the problem is, to get that huge debuff, you have to play his ultimate minigame. It's a dex-based minigame. It's probably the worst, in my opinion. This is me personally. It's the worst thing they've ever put in this game. It's an ableist minigame. You just can't, if you can't play the dex-based minigame, or if your computer can't do it because lag, then you just can't get him to work very well. But he can't. That doesn't mean he's not strong, and they know that this is a problem ultimate, and it's on their to-do list to fix. They just haven't had time to address it yet. I've confirmed in my conversations with them. It's got to be changed. It's just they haven't got around to it yet. So, but Narak can be solid, can be really solid. Offers up some interesting gameplay. So, again, Gosrick probably the weakest link here. But still useful. He's got an armor ablation ability, which basically reduces the damage threshold for taking off chunks of armor on enemies. He's also got an interesting buff that's based off his placement and how far away in these lines, in these buff lines, that the DPS is, which is pretty cool to play around with. He's part of the Rivals of Waterdeep, and he works really well with them, especially Virgil with their weather-based buff, because he's got weather-based stuff. So there's just lots of really good options, and you've kind of got to figure out what's going to be best for you. It really isn't there. It isn't just there's no one true pick like last event with Briv, right? Moses Karada. Gale's Netherese orb ability seems to spike randomly for me. I've heard this from people. Do we know what might be causing that? I thought his kit was pretty static. I would submit a ticket. I've heard it bounce. I've heard it's bouncing around, but there isn't anything about his kit that should make it bounce. It's a static kit. Yeah, it's a static kit. I don't understand. I don't. It should just be a flat number. So yeah, I would submit a ticket. Something's affecting it that shouldn't be. That's something fluctuating is affecting it, and it shouldn't be. Papagena, how should we prioritize when using the bouquets that drop to buy chests? And how do they change from champ to champ? They don't change. It's still 7,500 bouquets to buy a chest pack. And you kind of want to figure out where you want to put your gear. Like I said, I think you start with Electrum chests, and you go from there. So I think you try to split them up to the point where, if one champion has a little better gear than the other, you try to get them all equal. I think that's a good idea. Like on my new player account, that's this event. That's what I'm doing. Last event, it was everything on Briv, but this event, I'm going to try to move them around and try to get everybody into some decently solid gear. Try to get everybody at least into full blues, with one purple. That's kind of your goal, because because the pity timer on like, so 4 packs. Ideally, if I can get 4 chest packs for everyone, that would be great. I don't know if that's a thing with my that I can do. We'll see. But yeah, at least full blue gear is what you're aiming for on all your event champions. And your electrums are going to help you get there, right? Electrums from codes from streams like this. Right? Let's see. Governor Explosion with Caddy Breeze, my first flex slot. Any suggestions on the other two? I was thinking Orkira and Ontreus. I mean, those are all fine. Like I said, it's kind of up to you. They're all good. But those 3 are, 3 solid end game champions. Dab God, what's the best way to build favor? I'm gonna flavor this towards the event. You just have to do deep runs in free plays. Either the adventure unlocks or free plays. You don't try to build favor in a variant. So what's a deep run? It basically means you just try to push as far as possible. You don't go until it says, "Oh, it's flashing green, let's leave." You just keep going. And you try to upgrade your champions with the gold you're getting. Try to do it in an efficient way, which means you're looking for actual upgrades that are boosting power for either the whole team or specifically your targeted DPS. You got to make sure you're building a good pushing formation. If these are not things you know how to do yet, hit up. I've got a new player guide, and it links to things like Formation Strategy 101, like how to build a formation. I've got some guides over on the subreddit also now about that deal with some of these that are my starter guides. It's the 101 series. That's basically means starter guides. You want to hit that up because building favor is just about pushing as far as you possibly can. Not hanging around a lot once you get there. We talked a little bit about like a dirty gold farm. It's there's not a whole lot of adjustment there for new players, but that hot swap in and out with gold find things and fire breath potions. There's lots of ways to get favor. You just got to kind of, but the core of it is build a really good formation and push as far as you possibly can. Lurking Rider, good news, everyone. Penelope's insect swarms do not, in fact, eat the potato. That's good. Kira's ult still fries everything, though. Yeah. Speaking of Penelope, what spec choice do you recommend is the default, and which are the more niche options? So I think left spec is the default for pushing, in terms of her based off the swarms. And lately I've been like, for the first specialization for a friend spec, it's been the right spec every time. 10 stacks of that has beaten most things. Not always. I guess there was one time I went left, and that was when I had 10 good for that variant. But yeah. So far I've been defaulting to the right hand spec for the friends, and then left hand spec for her insect plague functionality. 919, do you think new players can finish and complete all tier 4 map variants? No. Why would you think that? I think I addressed this earlier. New players, tier 1 is your playground. You might be able to dip your toe into tier 2. Last event, I was able to complete like the first variant on some of the champions, but the second variant was hit or miss, like on a new account with like blues, mostly blue gear, and no patrons, no modrons, nothing, right? So new players are, I don't know, why would anybody think new players could do everything? That's not how this game works. The events are progression based systems. They're progression checks now. Jurathonus, do you ever check the math when buying 7,500 token chests? I do. No, I just buy it. I had 7511 tokens, bought the chest, and had 2 tokens left. I guess submit a ticket? I don't know. Yeah. So no? Look, if you see something, I'm going to say this, you don't have to ask the community if they've seen a problem, or that you have. If you run into a problem in the game, 1, restart your client, because turning it off and turning it back on again really works in this game. 2, if it's still there, submit a ticket. It's down here. It's the question mark button at the bottom right. You can't see it, but it's the support when I hover over it. Yeah, that's a big deal. But, you know, it doesn't matter if anybody else sees it or not. If you see it, report it. If you see something, say something. Let's see. Lurking Rider, what outfit is Penelope wearing? She doesn't appear to be in her default Modron costume. I don't know what you're talking about. She totally is. McNeil DJ, Penelope or Dob for gold find. I mean, they both stack. It's my understanding Penelope can stack bigger. But Penelope's is just pure gold find. Dob gets you gold find and power. So what do you need is the question. And how many stacks do you have, right? When a champion just goes all in on one thing, they tend to be better at it than others. Like Jarlaxle is the best in slot 4 for gold find, while everybody else is like a hybrid of gold find and some power of some kind. So Penelope is just all gold find on her ability, whereas Dobbs is split. Split. Jorathonis, I was at a wall. Boss was on try 1470. I don't know what that means. Do you mean Enrage 1478? This is a place to use Penelope to get story time stacks. I mean, anywhere towards the end of your run is where you would want Penelope in to get story time stack. If gold is what you're looking for. Yeah. But just using her to push with, she's going to build it up automatically. Headorama, can you explain the green arrows again? The show when you're moving champions around. Sure, this is your buff indicators, folks. If you didn't know this, now it isn't all buffs, but it's usually their primary buff. So Gale's is 2 columns in front, so it's showing that it's pointing to all of the formation slots that it would be buffing. Penelope's is kind of everywhere because she's buffing. She just gives all champs damage buff. Yeah. Because it's buff increases the damage of all champions, so she's just basically saying, hi, I buff everyone. It doesn't matter where you put me, right? So you just kind of got to figure out what their primary buff is that's directed. Usually, like this is a positional, but hers is just everywhere. That's what you're looking at. Gordas, is Gale's debuff sticky? I don't know. I haven't tested it, and I can't test it now because we're too low in area. Yeah, I don't know. They were moving away from sticky debuffs, so I would think no, but I don't have an answer to that. He's only been out a couple days. True One Hedda, does the 50% chance to miss for Gale's spec choice work on campaigns where you take damage every area? It shouldn't. Any of those things where it's like your party takes damage every X number of seconds, that isn't coming from an enemy. There's no miss. There's no chance to hit there. It's just you're taking the damage, so it shouldn't. It should only be an enemy attack of some kind. Now there are some areas where they pulse magical damage out. Like I know there was like these fungus things on one thing that they throw spores out and everyone takes damage based off that, and those can miss from Rosie's magical like her deflect arrows, like her deflect projectiles, deflect missiles. That's what it is. God, we got there eventually. So it might work for Gale there, but those variants that say as part of the restriction you're taking damage every X number of seconds, that isn't an attack. It's just a damage application. It's why that stuff doesn't trigger like Briv's healing, because he isn't getting attacked. Well, we answered that one. Any must-grab champ? Everybody wants to know. Any must-grab champions during the Greengrass event? Yeah, but basically everybody except for Gosrick. Like I said, I went over them all, Loftal, so hopefully you can make your own decisions, but it's kind of a enjoy. Like whoever you're picking, even with Gosrick, I mean, they're going to bring something that's going to be okay for you, at least. But the others are all pretty good, yeah. Gary, what's the tier 4 reward for Gale and Penelope? So for Gale, it is the immolation feat, which means all of his attacks do 1 second of bud damage every second for 5 seconds, something like that. And for Penelope, it's the first ever healing pigment. Healing pigment. Ominous Outlook, mid-game player of all the event champions. Okay. Is there any that are a bit better for gearing up? I can clear tier 3, but tier 4 isn't able to be completed. Again, Orkira is the queen of debuffs. But what you're looking at is you're trying to get like epics on certain things. Like hers is her healing flame and her elemental fire. You kind of want both of these. Well, I kind of all 3 of these abilities, quite frankly. All 3 of these ability-based items are great for her. The others, don't worry about. So it's kind of like about targeting specific items. Catti crit chance, that's a big one for her, as is her ultimate cooldown. I know that may sound weird, but it's what shares her crit chance with everybody. So getting her crit chance to guaranteed 100% is a big deal. So she's always critting. It's just a big deal with Catti. And then getting her ultimate back more often. So you're looking for things like that. Like it's not necessarily that, full epic is going to be the big deal. I mean, obviously you want to full epic everyone, but try to get the right epics on the right champions and just kind of look through them and look at which ability is big for them and go for that. Like for Penelope, it's slot 5, right? Like, so not all items are equal. So you're kind of hoping that you get those epics and you're hunting for those and you want to keep opening those chests until you get them, basically. Turducken, do tanks that gain stacks on abilities when attacked still gain a stack if the attack misses because of Gale's abjuration specialization? That's a good question. I've never checked. I would say no because they haven't been hit. But I've never checked. I would say no. It would make sense to me that no. But again, it's you. Sometimes you got to make choices. Do you want survivability? Do you want them to be able to live longer, or do you need that buff stacked up? Right. King Salame, even if you can't push tier 2, is it worth it to keep running the event for the bouquets? You do not need to do the event to get bouquets. Event tokens are not linked to event runs. You can do anything you want in this game. As long as you're killing enemies, event tokens will drop for you. Okay? So if you've done everything you can, like on my new player account, later today, I'll be streaming about an hour after this stream ends. If you want to see more of a new player formations and stuff, I do what I can. I do the tier 1 stuff, and then once I'm done with the tier 1 stuff, I just go back to normal campaign stuff, or I do a time gate. One of those two, right? Like whatever is the priority for me outside of that, because I don't need to stick around on the event. Once I've done everything in the event I can do, I go back to doing other stuff. Man. Turducken, what's the current availability of Narak's Illithid Tadpole feat? It's not available. Guide says Corrupted Gems. Correct, because that's what it arrived with. But I don't see it in my store. It's because it got rotated out. Where do I see a feat? Wait, I do see a feat for Preston. Blah, blah, blah. Might it rotate back? No. Is it only ever wild offers? No. So the way, let's talk about the Thayan Enclave. Since this was started off with Narak, but if you pick up Narak, you can't get his tadpole feat isn't over here for Corrupted Gems because this shop shifts. It shifts every time a new event happens. New stuff gets loaded in to the shop. And the stuff that was there before, like when in 46 days, all of these items are going to get a countdown timer. They'll be good. You can only grab them for 9 more days at that point. And then once the next emergence event ends, they all leave the shop. And then you have to wait about 3 months. And then depending on what it is, it goes to different places. Golden Epics go into wild offers. Skins will go into wild offers. Feats become available for green gems. Green gems. These chests just go away forever. Okay. So if I have something in a guide that says corrupted gems and it's not in the Thayan Enclave, that means that's how it arrived. And until it gets out of exclusivity period from that Enclave, it's not available. And then once it comes back, it's going to go to one of those 3 things. So if it's a feat, it will be available for 50,000 gems. It's just going to take a while for it to get into the shop. Or get into the UI. To split the party double event currency drop. Fulio base. No, it's just 1 every 25 seconds. Doesn't matter how many parties you have. Doesn't mean it. Speed potions, none of that matters. It's a server-side calculation. Your account gets 1 every 25 seconds. So if you want more, you need Strongheart scavenging some, or you need bounty contracts. Do I have any? Yes, these. Bounty contracts. They drop time-based rewards, and that tokens are time-based rewards. All right, let me go back and try to hit the generic stuff. We only got about 10 minutes left. So, speed run. Floaty, no legendaries on the new patron available champs. You mean for you? You have no legendaries. Okay, that's fine. Which top 3 champs do you suggest to funnel legendaries to clear them at this point in time? No idea. Look, you're in the late game. Go figure it out. There's no way for me to know that for you. There's no way for me to know that for you. You could have all champions, you could have all full epic, but your item levels are going to be across the board. I don't know what they're going to be. They're going to be all kinds of different things. You got to figure out the best formation for you, for Elminster, just generically, and then start working on that stuff. This is late. This is the late game last champion. You got to do that stuff. I know a lot of people don't want to. A lot of people are just pitching a fit. The Elminster's none of my stuff works for Elminster. Well, okay. I'm going to get back to playing the game instead of cruising with whatever you're using before. I mean, this is supposed to be a puzzle game. You've been given a new puzzle, right? Kyozutino. Is the giveaway on Steam really happening, or was it an April Fool's joke? No, it's happening. I'm a returning player, so I don't have like Will, Lazel, and Shadowheart yet. Yeah, no. So if you play the game on Steam only, there is a giveaway coming up next week, Monday, the 8th. And you are going to be the recipient of Gale. And I don't know why they gave away Gale since he's in the event, but Gale, Lazel, Karlach, Shadowheart, and Will. You get 5 champions. You're going to get an Owlbear familiar. You're going to get a skin for Gale. It's Robe of the Weave Gale. You're going to get 16 gold chests for each of those champions, and with 2 guaranteed shinies out of those stacks. You're going to get an Epic Potion of the Gem Hunter and an Epic Potion of the Gold Hunter. Yeah, no, they don't do April Fool's jokes like this. This is a thing. April 8th starts Monday. You get a week. If you log in on Steam, you get it. Hopefully this brings a lot of new players to the game. That's what these are. These promotions are... It's not about giving us stuff. It's about getting new players into the game and getting them started. That Owlbear Familiar and the skin for Gale, after a 6-month exclusivity period, they'll be in the gem shop on all platforms. Okay, so that stuff will eventually be available for everyone. But these are promotions that to bring new players in the game. Hopefully, we get just a ton. I love new players. I love it when we get new players. But yeah, these alternate. Usually, we see it go back and forth between Epic and Steam. I think Epic had one 3 months ago. So probably 3 months from now, Epic will get another one. Other platforms don't like doing giveaways. It's a platforms don't. A lot of platforms don't like giving stuff away that they're like in their minds. They're like, you could be selling this. Why would we give it away? Dab God, how much does equipment matter? Technically, so there are people who do what they call a gearless challenge, where they try to play the game without any equipment at all, without any of this stuff, and they play a lot of it. It slows down your progress. Equipment is power, so imagine that. If you take away equipment, you don't have the power to complete stuff as quickly. You can still get that power in other ways, but equipment is a big deal. Equipment is a big deal. It isn't the only deal. There's lots of different pillars of power. I have a guide called Progression 101, and it talks about the different ways you can add overall power to your pushing. It's just one way. Just like favor is another way. Papagane, if I don't have Dynahair's Tadpole feat, how can I get it? You got to wait. It was one of those, I believe it was one of those that was corrupted gems. Wasn't it? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Hold on, let me go look at her real quick. Yeah, I think this was corrupted gems, so you just got to wait a few months and it'll be available for gems. Usually if you see that where a feat shows up and there's no way, it says there's no way to get it, it's because it's in an exclusivity period and you just have to wait and it'll eventually be available for gems. The difference is any of these, like these tier 4 event feats, like for Penelope, oh, I got hers. Oh, I mean for Gale, if it's one of these progression based feats, like it says, hey, available as an event reward, that's it. It's always, you can only get it from climbing the tiers. Is Dynahair still in the Enclave? I think that's the spec choice one. Oh, I'm wrong. No, there you go. Corrupted gems, 10,000. I thought, oh, it's her gold and epic that's... Okay. So her feat's currently in the Enclave. There you go. But it takes 10,000 corrupted gems. If you don't have it, then a very long time from now, like 5 months from now, it'll be available for green gems. But if you can get 10,000 corrupted gems, thank you, chat. If I don't pay attention to these, honestly, feats I just see as a preview that eventually they're going to be able for gems. I generally don't ever get them for corrupted gems. Caffeinia, just for clarification, so the champions eligible for Elminster will change through the years, right? Correct. Because Elminster wants the most recent 3 years. In fact, I think Orkira just checked out. I got lucky. Got to use her on a couple variants. I don't think she's available anymore. Rough Rider, is the commonality between you and Elminster that you both tell distracting stories? Wow. No, it's that we both think Vola's a hack. Lightspeed recently got Xerophon. Can you provide a quick overview? Quick overview is that Xerophon, right here, they are a doppelganger. Their thing is all about their ultimate, perfect imitation. So when you throw them in your formation, you need to build the rest of your formation, then put them in, and then you pick the highest number of champions in the formation. Because what these specialization choices do is they make their cooldown, wrong pronoun. They make their cooldown lower, and you want their cooldown to be as low as possible, because you need to hit that ultimate over and over and over again to ramp up their buff. That's it. You just throw them in. You park a familiar on their ultimate. After you got it set like this, you park a familiar on ultimate. What they do is they imitate somebody like an enemy, and then they buff everybody based off it. So you would just park a familiar here and let them just continually go. And if you have other champions like Penelope or Dungeon Master who can reset or lower, and Human who can reset or lower ultimate cooldowns, then it makes stacking them up even faster. That's Seraphon. Super D-Dub, should I use blacksmithing contracts on someone who isn't full epic? In very specific circumstances, yes. Specifically, some of the levels will be added to the blue item, and are those levels wasted when the item is replaced with an epic? No, because the items don't go on the rarity of gear. The items go to the item slot. So even if you dumped it all on a white item, as you get higher rarities, those item levels stick around. There are specific scenarios where I will say, yeah, you can, increasing on less than epic gear is, I find fine. And that's like on Briv and Human. Like if you get Briv and Human early, one or the other, or both of those. All your blacksmithing contracts belong to them. Like, they just need to get dumped on them, and it doesn't matter if they're low level or not. Briv, specifically, you can just dump endless amounts on. Humon, there's some max numbers, even if you're low level, and eventually you want to be chasing epics for those, but you can dump them in early because you need a lot of them on those champions. But after that, otherwise, usually I'm like, just get your champions to full epic. That's going to put a lot of item levels on them, and then you can worry about whether they need more or not. There are some champions like those mop that have mop abilities, like mathematically overpowered abilities, where you might want tons of item levels on them in the future, and you could dump it on those too. But usually speed champions are where you start. Bulk sample is normal. The Dark Urge is consistently my strongest DPS as a new player. Yeah. Should I be using someone else? Check this code. Hold on. Check the code I just put in chat. Jenny get gold. Jenny D did a promotion for Dungeons & Dragons in affiliation with Idle Champions. And it unlocks Carlock. And it gives you some chests. Some gold chests for Carlock. And on my new player account, Dark Urge was my biggest damage dealer. Carlock destroys. Carlock destroys. So it just depends. Carlock has worse gear than Dark Urge. Still destroys. Carlock Bay. I'm not going to be able to get through all these questions. I'm trying, folks. Bulk sample. How much slower is progression in this game as a totally free-to-play player? I don't find it that much slower. I've played new player accounts basically every year. I start up a new one, and I play it free-to-play. I don't find it that big of a deal. What I would spend money on first is quality of life stuff like familiars, and so, money can help quality of life there, but I don't find it that big of a problem. Mycroft Jones, I mean, cash, it's a pay to progress faster kind of game when you're buying that kind of power. So, depending on how much people are spending, if people are spending thousands, they're going to go a lot faster. But you can unlock all the champions, you can get all their gear, you can get power, you can complete all the in-game content. Totally free to play. This is not a race game. This is a marathon game. You need to just pace yourself. Mycroft Jones, is the armored health threshold in a single hit or a cumulative amount of damage? No, one hit. Every hit needs to break the threshold. LazyCat, what were the first two patron variants you did for Elementor on your account? Coasting to the Finish and the Invisible Wizards of Thay. Sword Razor, I know this seems basic, but how do I get this collection star, tracker star off of the upper right side of my display? You can't. That's just where it's there. That's its toggle. Gary, what's the odds you think of getting Mythar and Halsin as champions? So with this new giveaway that's probably going to be pulling in a lot of people to play Baldur's Gate 3 because you're getting 5 Baldur's Gate champions. If tons of people show up and tons of people are like, I love this, when are we getting these other champions? Then they might go, oh, we should probably think about adding more of these champions. But right now, this is all they've committed to putting in, were the Origin champions. So, is it possible? Yes. But I don't think it's on the books yet as a plan. And for the future, you don't have to ask a question multiple times. You just got to wait for me to get to your question. Bulk sample, not that was to you, but just in general. Somebody was asking. I didn't get my answer yet. Bulk sample, how much? No, again. You asked this question already. Headhunterama, is Carlock any good? Carlock is my favorite. Carlock's currently my focused primary DPS on my main account. And also on my new player account, because she just destroys everything. That's going to be it for today, folks. There's no more streams on this channel this weekend. And normally I would say streams return on Tuesday. But they don't. Stay tuned. I'm just gonna. No one said I should say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I want you all to know streams are gonna happen on Monday. Streams. Hey, look, they're doing a big giveaway. It starts on Monday. There may be streams on this channel on Monday. Come by. I also stream on my channel. You come hang out again. I'm gonna go get some lunch, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna turn my stream on. Twitch.tv/Gaarawarr. Put my name in chat. You can click it and toss it a follow. I can answer any other questions we didn't get to, or you can just watch me and hang out with a cool group of people. as we play through Idle Champions on a new account. I will be there in about an hour. Twitch TV/Gaarawarr. And I play the game over there 5 days a week. I'm even going to do like a pop-up stream tomorrow, but for a different game. Because normally I do a variety of games. But right now we're just focused on a new player playthrough. Again, Twitch TV/Gaarawarr. You can click my name in the chat and click the follow button. All right. Thank you to all of you for asking questions. Thank you, Gabe, for grabbing all those questions. There was a good amount of questions today. The song we're going out on, I played it the other day. It's kind of, we're going to go a little long. The Elucidation of Elminster, in honor of Gale's arrival. I'm going to give Gale a hand, play Elminster's song. Enjoy, folks.
It was on the day the dragon came. I saw him standing there, beard as long as sage's mane, flowing along white hair. He brought it low and spoke its name. That
Awesome.